It's almost August, so you know what time it is. Book of the Month predictions. Hi, I'm Colleen Delaney. Welcome back to my channel. Here I talk about books and writing. In the description, as always, will be links for my newsletter and my newest release, Finding His Mate. And pretty soon there's going to be a new pre-order up for a new book that I have coming out, but I'm not talking about it yet. In this video, we are going to talk about what I think might be the Book of the Month picks for this August. It is still summer, obviously, because I am filming by my bedside table instead of my beautiful bookcases downstairs. But my family is home, and it is really hot today, as it is wont to be in July. And I was just discussing with my friends last night, this is the first year ever that I am ready for my kids to go back to school. We have just been having a very busy summer, and in the last 2 weeks, I've pulled 3 ticks off my kids, and one was attached, and we do live in like an area where ticks are common, but this has never happened before. It's never been like this prevalent in my life. And so I am ready for the weather to get a little cooler. Not that I don't love warm weather, but I would like these insects to hibernate for a couple months so I don't have to do tick checks on 4 small bodies as well as my own every single night. That's enough about ticks. You don't come here for tick discussions. Instead, let's talk about some Book of the Month predictions. All right, I have my laptop here because I have a hard time. I'm not going to be able to freestyle the descriptions of all these books. And let's go ahead and start with historical fiction because there are a lot of good ones. Honestly, most of the subgenres Book of the Month usually does have a lot of really great picks this month, but I just wanted to start with historical fiction, so let's do it. So we have The Peach Seed by Anita Gale Jones. Here's the cover. This is a historical fiction, obviously. It is coming out on August 1st. It is 448 pages, which is a little long, but I feel like not crazy. I feel like if you're keeping it under 500, you're good for Book of the Month. And here's your description. Fletcher Dukes and Altovice Benson reunite after decades apart and a mountain of secrets in this debut exploring the repercussions of a single choice and how an enduring talisman challenges and holds a family together. On a routine trip to the Piggly Wiggly in Albany, Georgia, widower Fletcher Dukes smells a familiar perfume and then sees a tall woman the color of paper shell pecans with a strawberry birthmark on the nape of her neck. He knows immediately that she is his lost love, Altovice Benson. Their bond, built on county fairs, sit-ins, and marches, once seemed as sure as a forever thing. But their marriage plans were disrupted when the police turned a peaceful protest violent. Before Altovice fled the South, Fletcher gave her a peach seed monkey with diamond eyes. As we learn via harrowing flashbacks, an enslaved ancestor on the coast of South Carolina carved the first peach seed, a talisman that ever since each father has gifted his son on his 13th birthday. Okay, so it goes on. So this is one of those historical fictions where you're going to have like a little bit in the present day, but then the majority of the story is going to be told in flashbacks. This also, like, Goodreads breaks down the genres, and it does have romance down as one of the genres, which makes me hope that it's going to have a happy ending, but I never trust it if it's not a legitimate romance. This currently has 45 ratings on Goodreads and a 4.13, which is very high. All right, next we have The Last Masterpiece by Laura Morelli. This is a World War II story, and I feel like you have to always put a World War II one in. They come out pretty much every month, so it's not difficult to. This one is an August 1st release, August 1st being a Tuesday. There's a ton of books coming out on August 1st. And it's 384 pages, so definitely a normal length. In a race across Nazi-occupied Italy, 2 women, a German photographer and an American stenographer, hunt for priceless masterpieces looted from the Florentine art collections. It's the summer of 1943. Eva Brunner is taking photographs of Nazi-looted art hidden in the salt mines of the Austrian hinterland. Across the ocean in Connecticut, Josephine Evans is working as a humble typist at the Yale Art Gallery. When both women are called to Italy to contribute to the war effort, neither imagines she will hold the fate of some of the world's greatest masterpieces torn from the Uffizi galleries and other Florentine art collections in her hands. But as Italy turns from ally to enemy and Hitler's plans to destroy irreplaceable monuments and works of art becomes frighteningly clear, each woman's race against the clock and against each other might demand more than they were prepared to give. So that sounds like a very exciting... It sounds kind of like Monument Men, that movie that Matt Damon was in, and Bill Murray and the guy from Downton Abbey. And I feel like they were in the Austrian hinterland, South Mines, but I can't remember. I saw the movie once a long time ago, but it kind of gave me those vibes. All right, let's switch gears to California Golden by Melanie Benjamin. This one comes out on August 8th, and it is 368 pages long. Southern California in the 1960s, so also a very different feel from the ones we've been talking about so far. It says endless sunny days surfing in Malibu, followed by glittering neon nights at Whiskey A Go-Go. In an era when women are expected to be housewives, Carol Donnelly is breaking the mold as a legendary female surfer struggling to compete in a male-dominated sports, and her daughters, Mindy and Ginger, bear the weight of her unconventional lifestyle. The Donnelly sisters grow up enduring their mother's absence, physically when she's at the beach and emotionally the rare times she's at home. To escape questions about Carol's whereabouts and chase their mother's elusive affection, they cut school to spend their days in the surf. From her first time on a board, Mindy shows a natural talent, but Ginger, 2 years younger, feels out of place in the water. As they grow up and their lives diverge, Mindy and Ginger's relationship ebbs and flows. Mindy finds herself swept up in celebrity, complete with beachside love affairs, parties at the Playboy Club, and USO tours in Vietnam. Meanwhile, Ginger, desperate for a community of her own, is tugged into the vibrant counterculture of drugs and cults. Through it all, their sense of duty to each other survives as the girls are forever connected by the emotional damage they carry from their unorthodox childhood. I'm not going to lie, this one sounds really good to me. It currently has 202 ratings on Goodreads and a 3.81 average. It's got a very cool cover. We'll talk about the clues later, but for a little while, I thought this might be the clue. This might be the book that was the clue. There were like 3 books that I was going between, and I don't think this is it, but it could be a pick. Next, we have Learned by Heart by Emma Donoghue. She wrote The Room and The Wonder, and I know The Wonder was a book of the month pick before I joined. I can't remember if The Room was or not. It might have been. But The Wonder I really, really enjoyed. So I am very much looking forward to this book. This doesn't come out until August 29th. So technically it's not a new release since it's still August, but it's the end of the month. 336 pages. Learned by Heart is the long-buried love story of Eliza Rain, an orphan heiress banished from India to England at age 6, and Anne Lister, a brilliant, troublesome tomboy who met at the Manor School for Young Ladies in York in 1805, when they were both 14. Emotionally intense, psychologically compelling, and deeply researched, so this is based on a true story. Learned by Heart is an extraordinary work of fiction by one of the world's greatest storytellers. So this is like a really light description. And I don't know if that's on purpose because I feel like Emma Donoghue's like famous, but she's not like crazy famous. It's coming out, or it's currently got 113 ratings on Goodreads with a 3.92, which I assume in the next month that will go up because I'm wondering if they're like just putting ARCs out right now, like advanced readers copies. Either way, I'd love to read that book. Next, we have the book The Princess by Wendy Holden. And honestly, it's the third in a series, but I feel like it can be read as a standalone. And you're going to see why I think it might be a pick. Publication date is August 1st. It's 416 pages. And it's about Princess Diana. And I feel like there's a lot of renewed interest in Princess Diana in the last year or two. And so I could see Book of the Month grabbing this. We start in Britain in 1961 when she is legit a baby, and I think we follow her family for a little while, and then we follow her meeting Charles and all that. Lastly, for the historical fiction, and I promise this is the largest category that I did, is The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. This is coming out on August 8th. It's 400 pages on the dot. So, takes place in 1972. When workers in Pottstown, Pennsylvania were digging the foundations for a new development, the last thing they expected to find was a skeleton at the bottom of a well. Who the skeleton was and how it got there were 2 of the long-held secrets by the residents of Chicken Hill, the dilapidated neighborhood where immigrant Jews and African Americans lived side by side and shared ambitions and sorrows. Chicken Hill was where Moishe and Chona Ludlow lived when Moishe integrated his theater and where Chona ran the Heaven and Earth grocery store. When the state came looking for a deaf boy to institutionalize him, it was Chona and Nate Tiblin, the black janitor at Moishe's theater and the unofficial leader of the black community on Chicken Hill, who worked together to keep the boys safe. As these character stories overlap and deepen, it becomes clear how much the people who live on the margins of white Christian America struggle and what they must do to survive. When the truth is finally revealed about what happened on Chicken Hill and the part the town's white establishment played, McBride shows us that even in dark times, it is love and community, heaven and earth that sustain us. So this has got a 4.5 rating, which is very high. It only has 86 reviews, but this also I have seen on like every single most anticipated list. I read a few book blogs. Everybody's got this on a most anticipated list. So I have high hopes for it. Okay, let's switch to fantasy. Okay, let's go ahead and start with My Name is Iris by Brando Skyhorse. This has an August 1st publication date. I swear to God, almost all these books are coming out on August 1st. It's 272 pages, and here's your blurb. Iris Prince is starting over. After years of drifting apart, she and her husband are going through a surprisingly drama-free divorce. She's moved to a new house in a new neighborhood, has plans for gardening, coffee clubs, and spending more time with her 9-year-old daughter, Melanie. It feels like life is finally exactly where she wants to be. Then one beautiful morning, she looks outside her kitchen window and sees a wall that has appeared in her front yard overnight. Where did it come from? What does it mean? And why does it seem to keep growing? Meanwhile, in Silicon Valley, a startup has launched a high-tech wrist wearable called The Band, pitched as a convenient, eco-friendly tool to help track local utilities and replace driver's license and IDs. The Band is available only to those who can prove parental citizenship. Suddenly, Iris, a proud second-generation Mexican-American, is now of unverifiable origin, unable to prove who she is or where she and her undocumented loved ones belong. Amid a climate of fear and hate-fueled violence, Iris must confront how far she'll go to protect what matters most. So obviously this is more of like a sci-fi, but I thought it was a really interesting take on like how technology is going to most likely influence us quite heavily in the near-ish future. I believe this is a debut, but I'm going to double check. Nope, it's not a debut. I totally lied. I'm confusing this author with another author we're going to talk about in a little while. Not a debut. Actually, Brando Skyhorse is a Hemingway Award-winning author. Whoops. Next, we have The Invisible Hour by Alice Hoffman. If you watch my channel a lot, you know how I feel about Alice Hoffman. This expected publication is August 15th, and it is 272 pages. If you really know a lot about me and Alice Hoffman, I love her shorter novels. So I'm quite excited. One brilliant day, when Mia Jacob can no longer see a way to survive, the power of words saves her. The Scarlet Letter was written almost 200 years earlier, but it seems to tell the story of Mia's mother, Ivy, and their life inside the community, an oppressive cult in Western Massachusetts, where contact with the outside world is forbidden and books are considered evil. But how could this be? How could Nathaniel Hawthorne have so perfectly captured the pain and loss that Mia carries inside her? Through a journey of heartbreak, love, and time, Mia must abandon the rules she was raised with at the community. As she does, she realizes that reading can transport you to other worlds or bring them to you, and that readers and writers affect one another in mysterious ways. She learns that time is more fluid than she can imagine, and that love is stronger than any chains that bind you. As a girl, Mia fell in love with that book. Now, as a young woman, she falls in love with a brilliant writer as she makes her way back in time. But what if Nathaniel Hawthorne never wrote the Scarlet Letter, and what if Mia Jacob never found it on the day she planned to die? Okay, I would say personally, I don't know if I would like that book, mainly because I supremely dislike Nathaniel Hawthorne as an author. But it's written by Alice Hoffman. And some of her books, like her book, The Ice Queen, when I read the synopsis of it, I was like, I don't think I'm gonna like this book. I loved that book. It was beautiful. So I'm gonna get this book no matter what, whether or not I get it in my blue box or at my local bookstore. Next, we have Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo, and it is out on August 1st, and it's going to be 384 pages, so normal length. This one is more like a magical realism feel, kind of like the Alice Hoffman one we just talked about. Flora has a gift. She can predict to the day when someone will die. So when she decides she wants a living wake, a party to her family, to bring her family and community together to celebrate the long life she's led, her sisters are surprised. Has Flora foreseen her own death or someone else's? Does she have other motives? She refuses to tell her sisters. But Flora isn't the only person with secrets. Her sister Mathilde has tried for decades to cover the extent of her husband's infidelity, but now she must confront the true state of her marriage. Her sister Pastora is typically the most reserved sister, but Flora's wake motivates the driven woman to solve her siblings' problems. And Camilla is the youngest sibling and often the forgotten one, but she decides she no longer wants to be taken for granted. And the next generation, cousins Ona and Yadi, face tumult of their own. Yadi is reuniting with her first love, who was imprisoned when they were both still kids. Ona is married for years and attempting to conceive. Ona must decide whether it's worth it to keep trying to have a child. Spanning the 3 days prior to the wake, family lore traces the lives of each women. So this is definitely more magical realism. Like, I don't think there's going to be like a heavy hand of fantasy on here. I think it might just be more of like, Fleur has like these weird powers, and I'm going to guess that maybe a couple of the other women in the family do too. Right now, this has 426 ratings on Goodreads, which is pretty high, and the average is 3.84. Lastly, I'm very excited to tell you that this month, Book of the Month released 3 clues on their app. I'll pop them up right here. The first clue, I didn't see when it had like just one clue up. I only saw the first 2. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, I wonder if that's the book I'm about to talk about. But then I got very nervous because I'm like not good at the clues, as you've seen. So then I was like, I'm going to wait till they put the 3rd clue out. And they did. And once they put the 3rd clue out, I was like, I was right. So I'm like 98% sure that this is going to be in the box. It would be hilarious if I was wrong. But the book is Shark Heart by Emily Habak. And it is magical realism. It is expected publication is August 8th, and it is 416 pages. And you'll see after I popped up those clues why I'm pretty convinced this is the clue. It's a debut novel about marriage, motherhood, metamorphosis, and letting go. For Louis and Ren, their first year of marriage is also their last. A few weeks after their wedding, Louis receives a rare diagnosis. He will retain most of his consciousness, memories, and intellect, but his physical body will gradually turn into a great white shark. As Louis develops the features and impulses of one of the most predatory creatures in the ocean, his complicated artist's heart struggles to make peace with his unfulfilled dreams. At first, Ren internally resists her husband's fate. Is there a way for them to be together after Louis changes? Then a glimpse of Louis's developing carnivorous nature activates long repressed memories for Ren, whose story vacillates between her childhood living on a houseboat in Oklahoma, her time with a college ex-girlfriend, and her unusual friendship with a woman who was pregnant with twin birds. Woven throughout this bold novel is the story of Ren's mother, Angela, who becomes pregnant with Ren at 15 in an abusive relationship amidst her parents' crumbling marriage. In the present, all Ren's grief eventually collides, and she is forced to make an impossible choice. It's called a sweeping love story. So, I think Shark Heart's definitely going to be a pick. Isn't that exciting? Look at me getting one right away. I probably shouldn't say that. There's apparently another book coming out with twin birds, a houseboat, and a person who has shark teeth and human teeth. Okay, we're going to move on to contemporary / lit fic. There are a couple books that kind of toe the line of contemporary / romance. So I'm going to do romance directly after this, but I'll tell you which books I think those are. The first is not one of those. It's called Western Alliances by Wilton Barnhart. It is coming out on August 1st. It's 400 pages. It is classified as contemporary fiction, but also humorous. This is about the 2008 financial crisis, which if you're my age, you remember it. And you were in your 20s trying to hold down a job. It's also compared to HBO's Succession, which I did not watch, but my husband thoroughly enjoyed. Salvador, the patriarch of the Costa family, runs one of Wall Street's biggest banks the summer before everything collapses. Roberto and Rachel, his 2 children, have never worked a day in their lives, and Lena, his ex-wife, is a scheming hypochondriac. Part travelogue, part epic family drama, the novel follows Roberto and Rachel across Europe as the 2, I think this is pronounced dilettantes, I read it like 6 times before we filmed this, come to terms with their father's choice and the repercussions of his actions. Oozing with his signature satire and biting wit, Barnhart invites readers on a literary romp from elegant Paris to London, to the Mediterranean, to Providence, Rhode Island. I mean, it sounds like it's going to be like a little bit of like a funny travelogue or like rich kids getting in trouble. It currently only has 36 ratings on Goodreads and a 3.14 average, but we will see. Next, we have The Breakaway by Jennifer Weiner. She is a previous pick, and there's a lot of these have been previous picks, and I know I haven't been saying all of them, and I'm really sorry. But she also, I have a funny story. When I worked at an indie bookstore when I was in my 20s, her books were really popular then. She's written a lot of books, but she wrote a book called Good in Bed. And there was a woman I worked with who, I think we all know someone like this. She was probably like 62 when we worked together. And she was one of those like born to be a star, but like it didn't work out. But like she would like sing Broadway show tunes while we were working. And she was always kind of doing like a little bit of tap dance. Working at independent bookstores is pretty fun. But when we got Good in Bed merchandise, because you like get merchandise sometimes. I don't know if they still do that, but we used to. There were t-shirts that said Good in Bed, and this woman wore that Good in Bed t-shirt. All it said was Good in Bed. It didn't say by Jennifer Weiner. It didn't have a cover of the picture. Anything. Just Good in Bed. She wore that t-shirt once a week, I swear to God. And she was very buxom. It was wonderful, and I love that woman. And she's still, we're Facebook friends, so she's still doing well. Back to the new Jennifer Weiner, The Breakaway. So this one comes out August 29th at the end of the month, and it's 400 pages. This is one that I'm like, is this a romance? I don't know. Okay, here's your blurb. 34-year-old Abby Stern has made it to a happy place. True, she still has gig jobs instead of a career, and the apartment where she's lived since college still looks like she just moved in, but she's got good friends, she's got her bike, and her bike club in Philadelphia. She's at peace with her plus-size body, at least most of the time, and she's on track to marry her college sweetheart. Abby and Mark met at a weight loss camp. Abby's perpetually dieting mother, Eileen, forced her daughter to attend. 15 years later, when Abby reconnects with half his size Mark and finds out that he still adores her, it feels like fate. Yet Abby can't escape the feeling that something isn't right, or the memories of the one mind-blowing night spent with a man named Sebastian 2 years ago. So when Abby gets a last-minute call to lead a group bike trip from New York City to Niagara Falls, she's happy to have time away from Mark and a chance to make up her mind. But on the first day, Abby is shocked when she sees a familiar face in the tour group. Sebastian, the one-night stand she never thought she'd see again. As a serial dater who lives 100 miles away, Sebastian is far from Mr. Perfect, and Abby is determined to keep her distance, even if their chemistry is undeniable. To make things even worse, there's a last-minute addition to the trip, Abby's mother, Eileen, whom Abby blames for a lifetime of body shaming and insecurities she's still trying to undo. Over the next 2 weeks, strangers become confidants, hidden truths come to light, and a teenage girl with a secret will unite all the riders in surprising ways, while all of Abby's certainties about herself, her mother, and the nature of love are challenged. This currently has 478 ratings on Goodreads and a 3.89 average. I've only read, I didn't read the Goodreads review, but one book blog I like said that this was not their favorite Jennifer Weiner, which made me a little like, I don't know if Book of the Month will pick it. Also, this book sounds like a vacation my husband would want to go on. He is a long-distance bike rider, and that does not sound fun to me. Next, we have Where There Was Fire by John Manuel Arias. This is coming out on August 29th. It is 288 pages, and it is a debut novel and has a absolutely gorgeous cover, as you can see. So this is a lit fic, and it also takes place in a historical time period. But when I saw it, it was classified as lit fic, which is why I put it in this section rather than in the historical fiction section. Costa Rica, 1968, when a lethal fire erupts at the American Fruit Company's most lucrative banana plantation, burning all evidence of a massive cover-up. The future of Teresa Cepeda, I have such a bad Spanish accent, I am so sorry, Valverde's family is changed forever. Now, 27 years later, Teresa and her daughter Lyra are still picking up the pieces. Lyra wants nothing to do with Teresa, but is desperate to find out what happened to her family that fateful night. And I keep saying Teresa because my mom has a best friend named Teresa, who's from Mexico, so I'm going to assume that if you're from Costa Rica, you also say Teresa and not Teresa. Teresa, haunted by a missing husband and the bitter ghost of her mother, Armaga, is unable to reconcile the past. What unfolds is a story of a mother and daughter trying to forgive what they do not yet understand, and the mystery at the heart of one family's rupture, steeped in machismo, I can never say that word, machismo, I think that's right, jealousy, labor uprisings, and the havoc wreaked by the banana plantations of Central America. Brimming with ancestral spirits, omens, and the oh my gosh, this description's killing me. Anthropomorphic forces of nature, John Manuel Arias weaves a brilliant tapestry of love, loss, secrets, and redemption. That sounds really good. I love family stories. I don't know why I had such a hard time pronouncing everything in that. I'm so sorry. That currently has 58 ratings on Goodreads and a 4.03 average. The next one is The Year of Second Chances by Laura Avery, and this is another one that I'm like, is this a romance? I don't know. On Goodreads, they put all the genres. Romance is first, but it also has fiction, chick lit, and contemporary, which I didn't think anyone actually classified things as chick lit for like the last 15 years. It's coming out on August 22nd, and it's 288 pages. This is also a debut. Robin Lindstrom spent her first year as a young widow cocooned in the safe haven of the Minnesota farmhouse she once shared with Gabe, the love of her life, the man she thought she'd be with till the end. But her world is turned upside down when she receives an email informing her that her late husband has enrolled her in something called Flutter, a dating service. The app subscription lasts 12 months. Use it. Gabe's message from the grave reads, I don't like the thought of you being alone. If you won't do it for yourself, do it for me. After 12 months of pulling herself together, Robin's fragile equilibrium is knocked sideways. How could Gabe, of all people, be asking her to venture out into the murky waters of 21st century online dating? As her underemployed brother Theo points out, it's only a year, and it's what Gabe wanted. He set all this up to go into effect a year after his death, which means it was basically his last request. And so Robin tentatively takes steps to put herself out in the world once more, even if it means awkward outings at bowling alleys, club hopping with DJs she meets online, and stammering conversations at dinner. Along the way, she's surprised to find herself meeting new people, trying new things, and even getting to know a new version of herself, because everyone deserves a second chance at love and loving their life. This sounds like P.S. I Love You, which I never read nor saw the movie because everyone told me it was really sad, and I don't really like to cry in public. This has 46 ratings on Goodreads and a 4.0 even average. Now, the last book that I'm going to talk about is like a straight romance, The Deja Glitch by Holly James. This one is coming out on August 1st. It's 388 pages, and this is like a time loop. To break out of a 24-hour time loop, all Jack needs is for Gemma to fall in love with him in a single day. All Gemma needs is to remember him first. Gemma Peters is doing fine. She's making a name for herself in the LA music biz as a radio producer. She's got a ride or die best friend in Lila, and she gets to come home to Rex, her loving Labrador, every night. But ever since her rock star ex-boyfriend used her to get a record deal from her rock legend dad, she's made a no musicians rule when it comes to dating that's become more like a no dating rule. So when Gemma crashes literally into Jack one Thursday morning, at first she feels like fate might be finally doing her a favor. After all, this guy's cute, and wait, is she imagining it, or is he staring a little too deeply into her eyes? And how does he know her name already? It's harder to explain this funny feeling of deja vu she gets every time she looks at him. It's not at all like Gemma to kiss a man and forget him completely. So then how can she explain the dreamlike memory of his lips on hers? The truth is, this is no ordinary Thursday, not for them. In fact, they've lived this day over and over for months, and while Gemma has been totally oblivious to the time loop, Jack has been agonizingly aware of every single iteration. Luckily, Jack has a theory to bring his own personal Groundhog Day to an end. It's simple. Before the day is over, he just has to get Gemma to fall in love with him. This one currently has 486 ratings on Goodreads and a 3.84 average. Okay, remember at the beginning of the video when I told you the historical fiction section was the longest? I actually lied. The thrillers is the longest, which isn't odd. I feel like every month so many thrillers come out. So I'll try to like shorten my synopsis a little bit because I feel like I've been making a really long video. And if you're still sticking around, thank you. I really appreciate it. So we're going to start with The Trap by Catherine Ryan Howard. August 1st release, 320 pages. 1 year ago, Lucy's sister Nikki left to meet friends at a pub in Dublin and never came home. The third Irish woman to vanish inexplicably in as many years, the agony of not knowing what happened that night has turned Lucy's life into a walking nightmare. So she's going to take matters in her own hands. Angela works as a civilian paper pusher in the missing persons unit, but wants nothing more than to become a fully fledged member of the Irish police force. With the official investigation into missing women stalled, she begins to pull on a thread that could break the case wide open and destroy her chances of ever joining the force. A nameless man drives through the night, his latest victim in the back seat. He's going to tell her everything from the beginning to the end, and soon she'll realize what you don't know can't hurt you. No. And soon she'll realize what you don't know can hurt you. This one has 336 ratings on Goodreads at the moment and a 3.96 average. Next up, we have Just Another Missing Person by Gillian McAllister. We've got some missing people. This is coming out August 1st, 384 pages. 22-year-old Olivia has been missing for 1 day and counting. She was last seen on CCTV entering a dead-end alley and not coming back out again. Julia, the detective heading up the search for Olivia, thinks she knows what to expect. A desperate family, a ticking clock, and long hours away from her husband and daughter. But she has no idea just how close to home this case is going to get. Because the criminal at the heart of the disappearance has something she never expected. His weapon isn't a gun or a knife, it's a secret, her worst one, and her family's safety depends on one thing: Julia must not find out what happened to Olivia and must frame somebody else for her murder. If you find her, you will lose everything. What would you do? That sounds cool. It's like very clever and terrifying. This has 358 ratings on Goodreads right now and a 4.17 average. Next, they've got The Last One by Will Dean. This one is coming out on August 8th. It's 448 pages, which is slightly long for a thriller, but you know. When Kaz steps on board the exclusive cruise liner, the RMS Atlantica, it's the start of a vacation of a lifetime with her new love, Pete. On their first night, they explore the ship, eat, dance, make friends, but when Kaz wakes up the next morning, Pete is missing. And when she walks out to the corridor, all the cabin doors are empty. To her horror, she soon realizes that the ship is completely empty. No passengers, no crew, nobody but her. The Atlantica is steaming into the mid-Atlantic and Kaz is the only person on board. But that's just the beginning of this terrifying journey she finds herself trapped on in this white-knuckle mystery. So this is also one of its genres is listed as horror, but it doesn't say anything about paranormal, but it does say it's a psychological thriller. So do with that what you will. This has 1,550 ratings and a 3.91 average, which is a lot of ratings. Good heavens. Next up, we have Burlington by Heather Dixon. This is coming out August 22nd, and they do not have the page number down on Goodreads, so I don't know. It's between 150 and 700 pages. May Roberts is certain that her new life in the suburbs with her family will be everything she's always wanted. That is until one of the mothers from her daughter's school goes missing. May never thought she would fit in amongst the beautiful and rich mothers at River Park Elementary, though when she's accepted into their clique and they ask her to be a part of their unofficial neighborhood watch, May finds herself slipping more and more into a world of odd dinner parties, secret and lies, and even rumors of suicide attempts. It's only when one of the River Park moms disappears and then another that May must decide what's more important, fitting in or uncovering the truth. A fresh take on belonging, obsession, and schoolyard politics. This one also was listed as a mystery, not as a thriller. So I always think, like, when I first started reading mysteries and thrillers, I considered them the same genre, but they're really not. I always think of mysteries as like a little bit slower and more of like a building in the story. So this one is a mystery. And sometimes Book of the Month will do one mystery and one thriller, or sometimes they'll do two thrillers or whatever. We're getting there. The Hurricane Blonde by Haley Sutton is next. 384 pages. August 8th is the release date. Hollywood is a sickness. Few people understand this better than Salma Lowe, a progeny of Hollywood royalty and a former child star turned guide of the turned guide of the Stars 6 Feet Under tour bus. Salma spends her days leading tourists around the star-studded avenues of Hollywood, pointing out where actresses have met spectacular or untimely ends. Salma knows better than anyone that a tragic death is the surest path to stardom. Her own sister Tawny, dubbed the Hurricane Blonde for her off-camera antics, was murdered in the mid-90s, and the case remains unsolved. Salma herself has sworn off acting and just hopes to stay out of trouble until a real dead body is discovered on the tour on the property where her sister once lived. Salma soon realizes something uncanny. It's not just that the woman is dead at her sister's address. She also looks just like her and is wearing Tawny's distinctive hair clip. When the police investigation goes nowhere, Salma has no choice but to plunge herself back into the world she left behind to search for her sister's killer, who may have just struck again. But the search for the truth will take her deep into the rot of Hollywood past and present and into her family's long-buried secrets. This one has 102 ratings on Goodreads and a 4.16, which is quite high, and a very cool, creepy cover. Next, we have Gone Tonight by Sarah Pekkanen, who is a previous Book of the Month author. This one is coming out on August 1st. It is 352 pages. Catherine Sterling thinks she knows her mother. Ruth Sterling is quiet, hardworking, and lives for her daughter. All her life, it has been just the two of them against the world. But now, Catherine is ready to spread her wings, move from home, and begin a new career. And Ruth will do anything to prevent that from happening. Ruth thinks she knows her daughter. Catherine would never rebel, would never question anything about her mother's past or background. But when Ruth's desperate quest to keep her daughter by her side begins to reveal cracks in Ruth's carefully constructed world, both mother and daughter begin a dance of deception. This has 1,470 ratings and a 4.07 average, which is a high average for that many ratings. Next up, we've got Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney. August 3rd release, which is odd, because that's a Thursday, I think. Usually books always come out on Tuesdays. 320 pages. Alice Feeney is a previous Book of the Month author. She wrote Daisy Darker and maybe something else that Book of the Month, but I got Daisy Darker from them. 20 years after a baby is stolen from a stroller, a woman is murdered in a care home. The two crimes are somehow linked, and a good, bad girl may be the key to discovering the truth. Edith may have been tricked into a nursing home, but at 80 years young, she's planning her escape. Patience works there, cleaning messes and bonding with Edith, a kindred spirits, but Patience is lying to Edith about almost everything. Edith's own daughter, Cleo, won't speak to her, and someone new is about to knock on Cleo's door, and their intentions are not good. With every reason to distrust each other, the women must solve a mystery with 3 suspects, 2 murders, and 1 victim. Interesting. If they do, they might just find out what happened to the baby who disappeared, the mother who lost her, and the connections that bind them. This one has 428 ratings and a 3.97 on Goodreads. Lastly, we have None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. She is a previous Book of the Month author. This comes out on August 8th, and it's 384 pages, and here is the description. Celebrating her 45th birthday at her local pub, popular podcaster Alex Summers crosses paths with an unassuming woman called Josie Fair. Josie, it turns out, is also celebrating her 45th birthday. They are, in fact, birthday twins. A few days later, Alex and Josie bump into each other, and this time Alex is outside. This time is outside Alex's children's school. Josie has been listening to Alex's podcast and thinks she might be an interesting subject for her series. She tells Alex, on the cusp of great changes in her life. Josie's life appears to be strange and complicated, and although Alex finds her unsettling, she can't quite resist the temptation to keep making the podcast. Slowly, she starts to realize that Josie has been hiding some very dark secrets, and before she knows it, Josie has, a hard word right here, inveigled her way into Alex's life and into her home. But as quickly as she arrived, Josie disappears. Only then does Alex discover that Josie has left a terrible and terrifying legacy in her wake, and that Alex has become the subject of her own true crime podcast, with her life and her family's lives under mortal threat. Who is Josie Fair, and what has she done? That one has 2,675 ratings and a 4.45 rating on Goodreads, which is, if you don't use Goodreads, that's insanely high. I wanted to quickly mention 2 YA novels. Book of the Month picks a YA kind of infrequently, but there are 2 coming out this year. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of YA books coming out this year. There's 2 coming out this month that I was like, Book of the Month, might be into it. Her Radiant Curse by Elizabeth Lim is one, and Unnecessary Drama by Nina Kenwood. I don't personally think a YA is going to get picked this month, but I did want to just mention them in case you're interested. So let's go over my picks. So this month, I decided to do 6 picks. Book of the Month picks between 5 and 7 for their main picks, and then I also always pick some add-ons. So obviously, Shark Heart for fantasy and magical realism. I'm pretty confident this is the clue. Remember last month when I thought the clue was not the clue and I got it all wrong, but I'm pretty confident that Shark Heart is the clue. I think the thriller choice is going to be None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I've heard so much buzz about this. It sounds insane. I think that is our thriller pick. I think that we're going to have The Year of Second Chances by Laura Avery. I don't know if they're going to call it a romance or a contemporary fiction, but I think that's going to be like our romance or contemporary fiction pick. And then I think for historical, we're going to have The Princess by Wendy Holden. And I think we're also going to have The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. And I do think there's going to be a lit fic pick this month. And I think it is going to be Where There Was Fire by John Manuel Arias, which is also a debut. And I think Shark Heart is a debut too. So that'll be 2 debuts, which I think is a comfortable amount of debuts. Remember a couple months ago when they were like all debuts? I think for add-ons, Learned by Heart by Emma Donoghue is going to be an add-on. I'm just feeling it. I don't know. I might be totally wrong. And I'm quite hopeful that The Invisible Hour by Alice Hoffman is going to be an add-on. I don't think that's going to be a pick, but mainly because Shark Heart is a pick and they're both magical realism. And I love magical realism. I don't think they've ever had a month with 2 magical realism main picks, which I can see because that's like kind of a niche genre. But because a lot of Alice Hoffman's books, like all the Practical Magic series, I think, have been picks or at least add-ons, I'm hoping that The Last Hour is, or not The Last Hour, The Invisible Hour is an add-on, mostly so I can buy it using one of my many credits. That was a very long video. If you are still here, thank you so much. In the comments, please tell me your choices, what books you think Book of the Month is going to pick, or tell me out of all these books what you're most excited to read, because that is the hardest part of doing these videos. Is I get like an insane TBR. If you'll see right here, I was on a book buying ban in July, which I broke 2 times, but I talked about this book and I wanted it to be a Book of the Month pick so badly, and it wasn't. So I just went and bought it. I haven't read it yet. We're going on vacation soon. I'm going to bring it. If you've made it this far and you don't want to write anything in the comments, please throw me a big stack of books emoji. If you are watching this video thinking, what the heck is Book of the Month? And then you really like this video, in the description, I will have a link to get your first book box for $5. Not your first book box, your first book for $5 when you sign up using my code. And as always, I hope you are in the middle of a good book, about to start reading a good book, or about to start writing a great book. I'll see you soon.